The year was 2087. Earth had finally developed faster-than-light travel 5 years earlier. After sending out probes and unmanned ships, they had made contact with the Galactic Council, a union of 17 intelligent species that governed most of the Milky Way. The Council had invited Earth to send representatives to discuss possible membership. Sergeant Frank Murphy checked his gear one more time as the transport shuttle approached Outpost Station Epsilon. The massive space station hung in orbit around a gas giant in a neutral system, chosen as the meeting point for humanity's first official diplomatic mission. "Everyone ready?" Frank asked, looking at his squad of Marines. 8 men and women, the best Earth had to offer, selected to provide security for the 5 diplomats who would represent humanity. "Ready as we'll ever be, Sarge," said Corporal Lisa Baker with a small smile. She was nervous, they all were, but they had trained for months for this mission. "Remember, we're just here to look professional and keep our people safe," Frank reminded them. "No showing off, no picking fights with aliens twice your size." Private Jack Miller laughed. "What if they pick a fight with us?" Frank gave him a stern look. "Then you remember your training." None of them knew that their training would be put to the test much sooner than expected. The shuttle docked smoothly with Outpost Epsilon. The station was huge, with sections built to accommodate the various atmospheric needs of different council species. The human delegation had been assigned quarters in a newly constructed Earth Standard section. As they exited the shuttle, Frank noticed how empty the docking bay was. They had been told there would be a welcoming committee. "Something's not right," he said quietly to Baker. "Stay sharp." The diplomats, dressed in their formal attire, looked around in confusion. Dr. Ellen Rice, the head diplomat, frowned. "Perhaps there's been a miscommunication about our arrival time." Frank was about to respond when his instincts screamed danger. "Everyone down," he shouted, pushing Dr. Rice behind a cargo container just as energy bolts streaked through the air. The attack came from 3 directions. Aliens with gray-blue skin and 4 eyes positioned on elevated platforms around the docking bay. Their bodies were covered in armor that seemed to shift colors to match their surroundings. "Dravik's mercenaries," gasped one of the station workers who had taken cover with them. "They're feared throughout the galaxy." Frank didn't have time to ask questions. His training kicked in. "Baker, Miller, Jefferson, protect the diplomats, everyone else with me." What followed would later be described in Galactic Council records as an improbable defense against overwhelming odds. The Dravik's mercenaries had expected to quickly eliminate the humans, who they had been told were a primitive species with limited combat experience. What they didn't know was that human special forces trained for exactly these kinds of scenarios. Frank signaled to his team, using hand gestures they had practiced countless times. They split into pairs, using the cargo, containers, and shuttle equipment as cover. The Dravik's had numbers and technology on their side, but the Marines had something the mercenaries didn't expect: adaptability. Private Diane Young was the first to take down one of the attackers. She noticed that the Dravik's armor, while advanced, left small gaps at the joints. Her well-placed shot hit one of these gaps and the mercenary fell. "Aim for the joints in their armor," she called out. The Dravik's, realizing their advantage was fading, pressed their attack more aggressively. One of them threw a sphere that landed near Frank's position. Recognizing it as some kind of grenade, he kicked it away just before it released a cloud of paralyzing gas. "They're using non-lethal weapons," Frank realized. "They want prisoners." That meant something worse than death might be planned for the human delegation. Frank couldn't allow that. "Switch to lethal force," he ordered. "These aren't peacekeepers. They're here to make sure we don't reach the Council." The Marines adjusted their tactics. Private Sam Rogers, a former Olympic athlete, used his speed and agility to flank a group of Dravik's, taking down 3 before they could react. Corporal Baker, protecting the diplomats, showed remarkable accuracy, hitting targets that were barely visible through the smoke now filling the docking bay. The tide began to turn, but not without cost. Private Jefferson took a direct hit from an energy weapon and fell. Private Miller moved to help him and was shot in the shoulder. Despite his injury, Miller continued to fire from a prone position, covering Baker as she moved the diplomats to a more secure location. Frank found himself facing the Dravik's leader, a larger alien with elaborate markings on his armor. The mercenary had some kind of energy shield that deflected Frank's shots. Running low on ammunition, Frank did something the Draviks couldn't comprehend. He charged directly at his opponent. The mercenary, expecting Frank to seek cover, was momentarily stunned. By this tactic, Frank tackled him, the impact disrupting the energy shield. They struggled, the Draviks' superior strength nearly overwhelming Frank until he remembered his combat knife. With a quick, decisive strike, Frank found a gap in the alien's armor near what he hoped was a vital area. The Dravik's leader fell, his four eyes widening in shock. Frank grabbed the alien's weapon and quickly learned how to use it against the remaining mercenaries. 30 minutes after the ambush began, it was over. 32. Dravik's mercenaries lay dead or incapacitated. Of the 8 Marines, 3 were severely wounded, including Miller and Jefferson, but all were alive. Station security forces composed of various council species finally arrived. They stared in disbelief at the scene before them. "Impossible," said a tall, insect-like alien. "A full war pack of Draviks defeated by 8 primitives?" Frank, bleeding from a cut on his face, stood protectively in front of the diplomats. "We're not as primitive as you might think." What none of them knew was that the entire incident had been recorded by the station's security systems. The footage would soon spread throughout council space. In a secure room deep within the station, a group of aliens watched the recording with growing concern. "This was not the outcome we expected," said one, its translucent skin pulsing with light patterns. "The humans were supposed to be eliminated before they could join the council," said another. "The Zentari conglomerate paid the Draviks well for this operation. The Draviks Guild will not be pleased with this failure." The recording showed Frank Murphy continuing to fight despite his injuries, showed the Marines adapting to alien weapons. In the middle of combat, showed humans protecting each other with what the council species would later term irrational persistence in the face of certain death. 3 days later, after reviewing the complete security footage, the leader of the Draviks Guild made an unprecedented announcement. They would no longer accept contracts targeting human military personnel. It was the first time in the Guild's 1,000-year history that they had blacklisted an entire species. Humanity's reputation had begun to spread. 5 years had passed since the incident at Outpost Station Epsilon. Humanity had joined the Galactic Council, though many species still viewed them with suspicion. The Zentari conglomerate, a powerful mining corporation that controlled resource extraction in multiple systems, continued to see humans as a threat to their operations in Earth's solar system. The Europa Research Station was humanity's pride, a scientific outpost built beneath the icy surface of Jupiter's moon. 65 scientists worked there, studying the unique life forms found in Europa's vast subsurface ocean. Communication with the station suddenly went dark one Tuesday morning. "What do you mean, no contact?" Admiral Jones asked the communications officer at Earth Space Command. "Complete silence, sir. No response to any signals for the past 6 hours." The Admiral frowned. "Any unusual activity in the area?" "Nothing on our scanners, but..." The officer hesitated. "A Zentari mining ship was reported near Ganymede yesterday." That was all the Admiral needed to hear. "Get me Lieutenant Samantha Cole." Lieutenant Cole was training with her Navy SEAL team when the call came. 12 men and women, each selected for their exceptional skills in hostile environment operations. Within 3 hours, they were aboard a rapid deployment vessel heading for Europa. "Listen up," Sam told her team as they prepared their gear. "We don't know what we're facing. The research station has gone silent. Could be a technical issue, or it could be trouble," added Chief Petty Officer Greg Howard, her second in command. Sam nodded. "We prepare for the worst. Full combat load plus extra oxygen and thermal gear. Europa's surface is negative 260 degrees Fahrenheit." What they didn't know was that the Zentari had hired a new group of mercenaries, the Valkyr Collective, genetically enhanced warriors from the Andromeda satellite galaxies, had ignored the warnings about humans. The price was too good to pass up. "These humans are overrated," said Krav, the Valkyr commander, to his 20 soldiers as they set charges to breach the lower levels of the Europa station. The Draviks are weak. We are not. By the time Sam's team arrived at Europa, the situation had deteriorated. Their ship detected signs of a breach in the station's outer hull. As they approached in their shuttle, they received a weak emergency signal. "This is Dr. Paul Weber. Under attack. Unknown aliens. Heavily armed. 15 of us are hiding in the secondary lab. Please hurry." The message cut off. Sam looked at her team. "We have civilians in danger and unknown hostiles. We go in fast and quiet." The SEALs landed 2 miles from the main entrance, using the icy terrain for cover. Their white thermal suits made them nearly invisible against Europa's frozen surface. "Motion sensors detecting movement around the main entrance," reported Petty Officer Rick Fletcher, studying his scanner. "At least 4 guards." Sam studied the station schematics. "We don't use the main entrance, we go in through the emergency access shaft." The team moved silently across the ice. Years of training in Earth's harshest environments had prepared them for this, but nothing could prepare them for their first sight of the Valkyr. The alien warriors stood over 7 feet tall, with pale, gray skin and eyes that glowed faintly in the dark. Their armor seemed to be part of their bodies, with weapons integrated into their forearms. "What the hell are those?" whispered Petty Officer Maria Diaz. "Trouble," Sam replied simply. "But they bleed just like anything else." The SEALs accessed the station through the emergency shaft, avoiding the Valkyr guards. Inside, they found signs of a brutal attack. Bodies of researchers lay in the corridors. Some had been killed by energy weapons. Others appeared to have been torn apart by incredible strength. "They're hunting the survivors," Greg said, checking the station's security feed on a still-functioning terminal. "Looks like they've got the upper levels secured. The remaining scientists are barricaded in the deep ocean access lab." Sam made a quick decision. "We split into 3 teams. Greg, take Fletcher and Yang to secure the communications center. Diaz, you take Johnson and Patel to find and protect the civilians. The rest of you are with me. We're going to give these aliens something else to think about." What followed became known throughout the galaxy as the 48-hour hunt. Sam's team began by setting traps using the station's own systems. They flooded sections with freezing water, created false heat signatures, and used the station's intercom to broadcast sounds of movement across different levels. The Valkyr, confident in their superior strength and technology, were bewildered by these tactics. They had expected to simply overpower any human resistance. Instead, they found themselves being picked off one by one. "They aren't fighting like soldiers," one Valkyr told Krav after losing 3 warriors to hidden traps. "They're fighting like predators." Krav wasn't concerned. Not yet. They are just delaying the inevitable. Find them and kill them. But the SEALs were always one step ahead. When the Valkyr adapted to their traps, the humans changed tactics. They began targeting the aliens' built-in weapon systems, using the station's tools to disable their technology. By the 36th hour, with no sleep and fighting in shifts, the SEALs had reduced the Valkyr force by half. Sam herself had taken down 3, using her knowledge of joint vulnerabilities that even enhanced alien warriors couldn't overcome. The Valkyr, now truly alarmed, gathered their remaining forces to make a final push toward the lab where the scientists were hiding. "They do not tire," one Valkyr said to Krav. "We haven't seen them rest or sleep. How is this possible?" "They're just humans," Krav snapped, but doubt had crept into his voice. What the Valkyr didn't understand was how humans could push through exhaustion, how adrenaline and determination could keep them fighting long past what other species would. Consider physical limits. The final confrontation came at the entrance to the deep ocean lab. The remaining Valkyr, now just 8, faced Sam and 5 of her team. The aliens had superior position and firepower. Sam smiled at her team. "Like we practiced. Pattern Sierra." The SEALs moved with perfect coordination, each providing covering, fire for the others as they advanced from multiple angles. The Valkyr, expecting a frontal assault, were unprepared for the complex maneuver. In the chaos, Sam managed to reach Krav. The Valkyr commander was stronger and faster, but Sam had studied his movements for 2 days. She knew exactly when to strike and where. As Krav fell, his armor recorded his final transmission to the Valkyr ship waiting in orbit. They don't stop. They adapt to everything we do. They smile when they bleed. Avoid humans at all costs. They are not like us. By the time the rescue ships arrived from Earth, all 20 Valkyr were dead. The SEALs had rescued 42 scientists. Sam's team had operated continuously for 48 hours without sleep. When asked how they had defeated the feared Valkyr collective, Sam simply said, "We did what needed to be done." The Valkyr ship transmitted Krav's final warning to their headquarters. The next day, the collective withdrew all operatives from human space. The legend of humanity's special forces grew stronger. By 2095, humanity had established a solid position in the Galactic Council. Though still considered newcomers, humans had proven their worth, especially in military and peacekeeping operations. Captain Alan Reeves checked his exosuit one more time as his dropship approached Caraxes 4. The mining world was known for its toxic atmosphere and unstable geological conditions. A massive earthquake had trapped 47 miners, a mix of 7 different species, in the deepest tunnels of the primary mining complex. "Comms check," Alan said, looking at his mixed species rescue team. He had 15 members under his command, 5 humans from Earth's Crisis Response Unit and 10 aliens from various council worlds. "Suki squad ready," clicked Vaknar, a tall insectoid whose species specialized in structural analysis. "Medical team prepared," added Dr. Lani Singh, one of the human medics. The situation on Caraxes 4 was dire. The mining complex had been built to withstand the planet's frequent tremors, but a quake measuring 8.9 on the planetary scale had caused unprecedented damage. Even worse, the toxic atmosphere was leaking into the lower levels where the miners were trapped. "Remember, we have 18 hours before the atmospheric containment in the lower tunnels fails completely," Alan told his team as they landed. "The miners have basic emergency breathing equipment, but those only last 20 hours. By my count, they've already used 4. The rescue operation started smoothly. The team entered the damaged complex, working their way down through partially collapsed tunnels and damaged lift shafts. Vaknar and his fellow Tsuki engineers used their natural abilities to identify safe paths through the wreckage. 6 hours into the mission, they reached the 23rd level. The miners were trapped 3 levels below. Captain Reeves called Meera Patel, one of the human engineers. "We have a problem. The main passage has completely collapsed." Alan examined the blockage. Tons of rock and metal had sealed off the only route to the lower levels. "How long to clear it?" he asked. Vaknar's antennae twitched as he analyzed the debris. "Minimum 15 hours with our equipment." "The miners don't have 15 hours, Alan said. He studied the schematics of the complex on his wrist display. "There must be another way down." Grell, a stocky alien with 4 arms, pointed to a narrow maintenance shaft. "This might work, but it's very small. Only the humans and maybe the Cindy could fit through. And it passes through a section where the atmospheric shielding has failed," added Vaknar. "The toxic gases would degrade an exosuit in minutes." The team fell silent. The toxic atmosphere of Caraxes 4 could dissolve organic matter in under an hour. Even their advanced exosuits could only resist it for a short time. Alan looked at the maintenance shaft, then at his fellow humans on the team. "Dr. Singh, how long could a human survive exposure to the atmosphere with immediate medical treatment afterward?" The doctor's eyes widened. "Theoretically, with protective gear and full medical intervention. Maybe 6 to 8 minutes, but the damage would be severe, possibly permanent." "That might be enough time," Alan said. He turned to the team. "I'm going through. I'll take a portable drilling unit and clear a path from the other side." "Captain, that's suicide," said Grell. "Even if you make it through the exposure, I'm not asking anyone else to do this." Alan cut him off. "The rest of you continue working on the main blockage as a backup plan." What Alan didn't tell them was that he had no intention of trying to make it back the same way. The captain began removing parts of his exosuit. "What are you doing?" asked Dr. Singh in alarm. The full suit won't fit through the shaft, Alan explained. I'm taking only what I need. The aliens watched in stunned silence as Alan deliberately compromised his own protection. To them, it was incomprehensible, like watching someone remove their own skin. If I'm not back in 8 hours, assume I didn't make it and continue with. The main blockage, Alan said as he prepared to enter the shaft with a minimal breathing apparatus and the portable drilling unit. Dr. Singh grabbed his arm. Your suit will start to fail after about 4 minutes in the toxic zone. You need to move fast. Alan nodded. Time me. The maintenance shaft was even narrower than it had appeared on the schematics. Alan crawled through darkness, guided only by the light on his helmet. When he reached the section with the atmospheric breach, his suit immediately began to sizzle as the toxic gases made contact. Warning alerts flashed across his helmet display. 3 minutes until complete suit failure. Alan pushed forward, ignoring the pain as the gases found their way through the deteriorating seals of his stripped-down suit. 2 minutes left. He could see the end of the toxic section ahead. As he emerged from the maintenance shaft on the other side, his suit's integrity fell to critical levels. Toxic gas began to seep through, burning his skin and lungs. But he had made it to the 24th level. Now he needed to clear a path to the trapped miners. With his suit failing and toxic gas entering his lungs, Alan set up the portable drilling unit at the least dense part of the collapse. The pain was becoming unbearable, but he focused on the task. 5 minutes had passed since he entered the toxic zone. Alan activated the drill and then did something that would be recorded in Galactic Council archives as an example of human disregard for personal safety. He used the explosive components from his suit's emergency systems to create a controlled blast that would clear the final barrier. The explosion worked, creating a narrow passage. Through it, Alan could hear the trapped miners. With the last of his strength, he widened the opening enough for them to escape. As the first miners began to emerge, Alan collapsed. The miners, seeing his condition, immediately activated their emergency beacon, alerting the rest of the rescue team. Dr. Singh and the medical team reached him through the newly cleared path 3 hours later. By all medical standards known to the council races, Alan should have died. The exposure to Caraxus Warfi's atmosphere had caused severe damage to his respiratory system and extensive chemical burns. Yet somehow, he remained conscious long enough to direct the miners to safety before allowing the medical team to treat him. 6 days later, as Alan recovered in a medical facility orbiting Caraxus IV, the story of his actions had spread throughout Council space. The Mazatri Observer, the most widely distributed news service in the galaxy, published an analysis titled, "The Human Contradiction: Why the Physically Weakest New Species May Be the Most Dangerous." The article detailed how human biological limitations had created a species that relied on strategy, improvisation, and what alien species described as controlled insanity under pressure. It noted that while many council species had evolved natural armor, venom, or tremendous physical strength, humans had evolved something potentially more dangerous: the willingness to sacrifice themselves and an almost irrational drive to protect others, even those of different species. The article ended with a quote from one of the rescued miners. "The human broke himself to save us. I do not understand such a choice, but I respect it more than I can express." Back on Earth, mercenary companies across the galaxy were updating their databases. Contracts against human military installations dropped by 70%. The price for the remaining contracts tripled. The reputation of human special forces continued to grow. The year 2104 marked a turning point in how the galaxy viewed human military capabilities. The Krell Imperium, a highly militarized species from the galactic core, had been watching humanity's rise with growing concern. Unlike the mercenary groups that had learned painful lessons about engaging humans, the Krell believed their superior technology and natural armor would prevail. Major Kevin Sutton of the 75th Ranger Regiment stood on the bridge of the transport ship approaching Proxima Centauri. Earth's first colony beyond the solar system had sent a distress call 18 hours earlier, then gone silent. "What do we know about the situation?" Kevin asked his executive officer, Captain Olivia Chen. Not much, sir. The colony reported unknown ships entering orbit, then we lost contact. Satellite imagery shows multiple landing craft near the main settlement. Kevin nodded grimly. And we're sure it's the Krell? Yes, sir. Long-range scans confirmed Krell ship signatures. The 75th Ranger Regiment's 3rd Battalion had been training for exactly this scenario. 200 elite soldiers equipped with Earth's best technology. But Kevin knew they'd still be outnumbered if this was a full Krell invasion force. All units, prepare for hot drop, Kevin announced over the comm. We're going in fast and hard. What made this encounter different from previous conflicts was that it was extensively documented. The Krell, confident in their superiority, had set up broadcast equipment throughout the colony. They were transmitting the operation live as propaganda to show the galaxy how they dealt with upstart species. It would not go as they planned. The Rangers deployed in drop pods, landing in a ring around the colony. Kevin's pod hit the ground hard, the impact dampeners barely managing to keep him from breaking bones. As soon as the door blew open, he was moving, rifle up and scanning for targets. Bravo team, secure the North Quadrant, he ordered over the tactical net. Charlie team, locate the civilians. Delta, with me. We're heading for the colony center. The Krell were waiting for them. 8-foot-tall armored warriors with scaly gray-green skin and 4 arms, each holding an energy weapon. Their natural armor was reinforced with technological shields that glowed faintly blue in the dim light of Proxima Centauri. Humans, rumbled the Krell commander, General Vorax, watching the Rangers approach on his tactical display. So fragile, yet so troublesome. The first engagement went badly for the Rangers. The Krell deployed energy-dampening fields that rendered most of the humans' advanced weapons useless. Plasma rifles and laser cutters failed, leaving the Rangers with only basic projectile weapons. Kevin watched as his soldiers fell back under heavy fire. 3 were already down, their armor no match for Krell energy weapons. They've prepared specifically for us, Captain Chen said, taking cover beside him behind a damaged colonial transport. They studied our weapons. Kevin nodded. So we changed the rules. He opened the battalion frequency. All units, switch to contingency protocols. I repeat, contingency protocols, now in effect. The Rangers immediately began adapting. They abandoned their useless energy weapons and switched to the old-fashioned backup weapons they carried, projectile firearms that used chemical propellants rather than energy cells. Weapons so primitive that the Krell hadn't bothered to counter them. Primitive projectile weapons? General Vorax laughed when his officers reported the humans' change in tactics. Let them try. Our armor is designed to stop particles moving at much higher velocities. What the Krell didn't understand was that humans had been killing each other with such weapons for centuries. The Rangers knew exactly where to aim: the joints, the eye slits, the breathing apparatus. As the battle moved into the colony's residential district, the Rangers demonstrated another skill that confounded the Krell: urban warfare. The humans used the environment in ways the Krell couldn't anticipate. They created improvised explosives from colonial equipment. They set ambushes in narrow corridors where the larger Krell warriors couldn't maneuver effectively. Sergeant Ben Ward found himself trapped when 3 Krell soldiers cornered his squad in the colony's hydroponic facility. The aliens had them pinned down with continuous fire, slowly advancing to finish them off. We need an exit, Ward told his 5 remaining soldiers. He looked around at the farm equipment, the irrigation pipes, the nutrient tanks. Then he smiled. And I know how to make one. What followed was something the Krell propaganda feed broadcast live across the galaxy. Humans deliberately causing themselves pain to secure tactical advantages. Ward cut his arm with his combat knife, letting his blood pool on the floor. When IDU mixed with the hydroponic chemicals, it created a slippery surface that caused the Krell, with their heavy armor, to lose their footing. As the aliens struggled to stand, Ward's squad eliminated them one by one. Similar scenes played out across the colony. A ranger with a broken leg used the jagged bone as a weapon when a Krell warrior got too close. Another group of rangers, trapped by a Krell energy barrier, deliberately caused a structural collapse that injured both them and their enemies. But the humans had been prepared for the injury and fought through it. In the colony's central plaza, Kevin found himself face to face with General Vorax. The Krell commander's armor was scorched and dented but still operational. "You fight without honor," Vorax growled. "Like animals." Kevin checked his ammunition. 2 rounds left. Not enough to penetrate the general's armor. "We fight to win," he replied. The Krell raised his weapon, but before he could fire, a massive explosion rocked the colony's power plant. The energy-dampening fields flickered and died. In that moment, Kevin's tactical display came back online, showing him the status of his troops. Half of Delta Team had positioned themselves around the plaza, waiting for exactly this moment. As one, they fired their now-functioning plasma rifles at the general. But the most disturbing moment for the watching galaxy came next. Private Joey Martinez, his legs crushed by fallen debris, had crawled to the colony's communication center. With the dampening fields down, he sent a message to all Krell forces. "We can do this all day." Then, using the last of his strength, he activated the manually detonated explosives that his team had planted throughout the colony's command buildings. The Krell lost 20% of their remaining forces in those coordinated blasts. The humans had sacrificed some of their own people who were too wounded to be evacuated, allowing them to continue fighting by triggering the explosives from their positions. General Vorax, watching his carefully planned operation fall apart, made a decision that shocked his officers. "Full retreat," he ordered. "Back to the ships immediately." One of his lieutenants protested, "But sir, we still outnumber them." "Numbers mean nothing against these creatures," Vorax replied. "They do not fear death as a rational species should. Each human acts as though their individual death is acceptable if it advances their collective goal. We cannot defeat an enemy with this psychology." As the Krell forces withdrew, Kevin organized search and rescue operations for the colonists and his wounded rangers. Of the 200 rangers who had dropped onto Proxima Centauri b, 168 survived. They had faced over 500 Krell warriors. General Vorax's final report, broadcast accidentally on an open channel as his ship left orbit, was recorded by human communications officers. "They do not fight to avoid death. They fight to ensure their deaths have meaning. This is not a foe we can defeat through conventional warfare." The Krell Imperium signed a non-aggression pact with Earth the following month. The mercenary guilds watched the recorded battle footage with growing unease. One guildmaster was reported to have said, "Charge double for contracts against regular human military. Refuse any contract against their special forces at any price." By 2120, humanity's position in the galactic community had changed dramatically. Earth had gone from a newcomer species to a major military power in just a few decades. Across 3 galaxies, a new term had entered common usage: the human factor. Commander Grace Patterson stood before the massive doors of the Hall of 5 Guilds. She adjusted her uniform nervously. As the newly appointed head of Earth's Interstellar Defense Force, she had been invited to address the most powerful mercenary collectives in the known universe. It was an honor no human had received before. "Ready, Commander?" asked her aide, Lieutenant Oscar Rodriguez. Grace took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." The doors swung open to reveal a circular chamber filled with representatives of over 30 species. The 5 guild masters sat on elevated platforms around the room. Each was a legendary warrior in their own right. Drexar of the Shadow Walkers, Klvik of the Steel Talons, Morvath of the Void Reapers, Genta of the Star, Blades, and the most feared of all, Grandmaster Quell of the Juraxian Dominion. Quell was an imposing figure. Standing 9 feet tall with 4 muscular arms and scaled skin that served as natural armor, the Juraxian veteran had survived 300 campaigns across dozens of worlds. His species was known for their martial prowess and strategic minds. "Commander Patterson of Earth," announced the chamber herald. "You may approach." Grace walked to the center of the room, aware of hundreds of eyes watching her. Many belonged to species that had faced humans in combat and lived to tell the tale. Others had only heard the stories. "We have invited you here to speak on a matter," Of great importance to the guilds, said Quell, his deep voice echoing in the chamber. The matter of human combat doctrine. Grace nodded. I'm honored to be here, Grandmaster Quell. Honor has nothing to do with it, rumbled Drexar. We seek information that will keep our operatives alive. Klivik leaned forward, his bird-like features sharp and attentive. In the past 15 years, mercenary casualties against human forces have risen by 400%, yet your species is physically weaker than most council races. Grace understood their confusion. From their perspective, humans should have been easy opponents. No natural armor, no venomous appendages, no particular speed or strength compared to many galactic species. What we wish to understand, said Morvath, is why human special forces in particular are so difficult to defeat. Grace had prepared a lengthy presentation with tactical analyses and historical examples, but standing before these veteran warriors, she decided on a simpler approach. Humans evolved as persistence hunters on a death world, she said. We survived by outlasting stronger predators. We don't expect to be the strongest or fastest. We expect to be the last ones standing. A murmur ran through the assembled mercenaries. Explain? Further, demanded Genta. Our planet shaped us, Grace continued. We evolved not to survive one type of environment, but all of them. Desert, Arctic, jungle, mountain. Humans adapted to every extreme. When we faced a challenge we couldn't overcome with our bodies, we used our minds. She gestured to her own, relatively fragile form. This body is not my only weapon. My species turned its weakness into strength. We created technology, yes, but more importantly, we created tactics. Grace paced slowly around the center of the chamber. A human special forces soldier doesn't think like other warriors. We don't ask if we can defeat an enemy in direct combat. We ask how to change the situation so that strength and speed don't matter anymore. Quell nodded slowly. The incident on Proxima Centauri B, your rangers used their own blood to defeat Krell heavy infantry. And on Europa, added Klivik, the Navy team that hunted the Valkyr for 48 hours without rest. Grace acknowledged their examples. Those are not exceptions, that is our doctrine. When technology fails, we improvise. When outnumbered, we change the battlefield. When outgunned, we attack from unexpected angles. And yes, when necessary, we use our own bodies as weapons. The chamber fell silent as the mercenaries processed her words. There is one more thing, Grace added, something that I believe truly separates us from many species. Humans don't fear death the way many rational beings do. It's not that we want to die. We don't. But we accept it as a possible outcome from the moment we begin training. Drexar made a dismissive gesture. Many warriors face death with courage. It's not just courage, Grace clarified. It's calculation. A human soldier will make a choice that guarantees their own death if it ensures the mission succeeds. Not as a last resort, but as a valid tactical option considered from the beginning. This concept clearly disturbed many in the chamber. For most species, self-preservation was a fundamental instinct that could be overcome only in extreme circumstances. The idea of calmly planning one's own death as a tactical choice was alien to them. As Grace concluded her explanation, the doors at the back of the chamber burst open. A messenger rushed in and whispered urgently to one of Quell's aides. The Juraxian's expression darkened. It seems we have a timely example of human tactics. The Zentari conglomerate, still holding a grudge against Earth, hired the Karak assassins to eliminate a human diplomatic team on Rigel 7. Grace tensed. The Karak were legendary killers known for never failing a contract. All 17 Karak operatives have been found dead, Quell continued, along with a data crystal containing a message. What did it say? Asked Morvath. Quell looked directly at Grace. It said, "Bill us for the cleanup." It was signed by Colonel Peter Grant of something called Delta Force. The chamber erupted in surprised conversations. Grace maintained a neutral expression, but inwardly she wasn't surprised. Peter's team had been assigned to protect that diplomatic mission. When order was restored, Quell stood to his full height. The massive Juraxian looked down at the human woman who barely reached his chest. "Commander Patterson," The 5 guilds have reached a decision. As of today, all human Special Forces units are classified as Contract Category 0, a designation previously reserved only for sentient weaponized species created during the last Galactic War. This announcement caused even more commotion. Category 0 meant that guild members were forbidden from accepting contracts against these targets under any circumstances. Quell raised his 4 arms for silence. When the chamber quieted, he spoke. Again, his voice carrying to every corner. Let it be recorded in all guild halls across the galaxy. They don't win because they're stronger or more advanced. They win because they simply do not understand that they are supposed to lose. Grace left the Hall of 5 Guilds with their respect, if not their understanding. As she walked back to her shuttle, Lieutenant Rodriguez looked at her curiously. Did you expect this outcome, Commander? Grace smiled slightly. Humans have been underestimated since we left Earth, but we're not the strongest, the fastest, or the most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. Then what are we? The most stubborn, Grace replied. And in the long run, that might be the most dangerous quality of all. From that day forward, no mercenary guild has accepted a contract against human special forces. The few independent operators who tried did not live long enough to regret their decision. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity not for what they were, but for what they could become when pushed to their limits.